logging through the.
Yes.
Okay, now
Yeah, it is. It started.
okay, good. Go ahead.
Okay. Greetings of peace to everyone, respected Father Victor, my brothers, sisters. A very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
With gratitude to God, I'm thankful to you for this opportunity in the way of intellectual pursuit towards learning and better understanding between us for a harmonious existence with each other. May God bless everyone with his richest blessings and guide us in our journey of knowledge and wisdom. So with that little prayer, let me first make it clear that the two topics, Islam and the modern world, and Maulana Wahiddudin Khan Sahib, a modern Muslim thinker, they are like, it's almost the same. Therefore, I am presenting these two topics as one session in continuity. Now, it will be very relevant to present a few words about the basics of Islam to begin with. Very few. Some have been shared by Sister Shabina. Islam is a revealed religion. It was not founded by anyone. Then the supreme concern of Islam is the discovery of God. God has described himself in the Quran in chapter 112 as he is God, the one, the self-sufficient one. He does not give birth, nor was he born, and there is nothing like him. So as we have chosen to understand the message of Islam, it becomes highly crucial that I draw your kind attention to first go through a process of differentiating between the message of Islam and the culture we witness amongst the Muslims. We will not know the true message if we draw our conclusions by the behavior prevalent in the Muslim society. We should not judge Islam in the light of Muslim behavior, but judge the Muslims in the light of Islam. The pristine source of authentic Islamic teachings is the Quran, the teachings and life of Prophet Muhammad. With these few fundamental points, let's proceed in our understanding of the specific topic chosen for today's discussion. To be clear about what is our perception when we use the word modern world, let me put forth before you my understanding. If all of us agree to the same definition, then the next points which I'll be sharing will help us in our understanding this topic at the same level. See, by modern world, we refer to the world post-scientific developments and the amazing technology which has revolutionized every aspect of human life on this planet. It has transformed this earth. It has transformed our life. It has permeated every facet of our life, including our spirituality and faith. We have stepped into the age of even artificial intelligence. How about the new concepts? There are plenty of them. We have a variety of spiritual groups following different methods to attain spirituality. We have concepts of gender equality. Different concepts are being experimented even in the educational system. Like we have schools where they do not conduct exams and they do not hold competitions. Words like minimalism are on the tongues of 9-year-old children. Many words have changed. For example, earlier the word disabled was used. Now they use the word differently abled. We have the younger generation who have to be given very profound explanations to why they have to brush their teeth. Every second person you meet talks about not only physical health problems, but also mental issues like depression and stress. Older generation is into diseases like dementia and many other things. So every house seems to have one patient. Family structures being questioned, and the list goes on. So this is what we are witnessing, there are many more things, and I could go on continuously sharing about what is happening in the modern world. Along the lines of this, we now speak about the modern man, his modern perspective, his attitude, and the problems he faces and the methods he adopts to live his life on this planet. We speak of the modern challenges and the modern solutions. This continues with new discoveries, struggles for improvements, and also of new problems cropping up, and man is constantly on this journey of trying to find solutions. Now, may I please know if we all are on the same page with regard to the understanding of what we mean by the modern world? Would any of you like to add further to this? Have I missed out on anything?
We are on the same page.
Thank you so much. So, connecting the message of Islam and the modern world, what I'm presenting before you is how relevant are the teachings of Islam in the modern world. There are many opinions from people regarding revision of the message of Islam to suit the modern times. Their points of argument are that Islam was revealed 1400 years ago, and therefore, how can it provide guidance in the present scientific and technology-based era, they ask. To answer this question, we have to delve into deeper knowledge of the religion. There's no other method to find this out. In today's session, what I'll be presenting is an initial perspective of the relevance of the message of Islam in the modern world. For a further understanding on the subject, I request my discerning audience to make use of the rich literature which is emanated from the pen of our mentor, Maulana Wahiddudin Khan Sahab. I will draw your attention now towards being clear about one more aspect pertaining to the word relevant itself. What do we mean when we say relevance of the message? By relevance, what I mean is Islam's guidance to the following. One, the purpose of a creation and the creation plan of God for us. And there are many things within this, the belief, the hereafter, the paradise, everything comes into this. Now, this was dealt very nicely by Sister Shabina in her session. It's not possible that a human being bestowed with creativity, intelligence, power of reasoning, desire for higher things will be satisfied with a few superficial aspects of life. Yes, it's a different matter when human beings out of their own free will use their best abilities only towards materialistic ends. Still, I would say, at some point in life, the emptiness sets in spite of all the materialistic things, and a human being craves for something more. Islam presents knowledge and wisdom with regard to this quest of a human being. However, it is unfortunate that due to misrepresentation of some issues by some Muslims, a general perception has developed that the teachings of Islam are not relevant in the modern times. As a result, the modern man might not consider Islam to see if there is an answer to his spiritual quest. Our CPS mission has the literature which offers Islamic spirituality to think about. Now, with this understanding of the meaning of relevance, I will be presenting a few points from the message and teachings of Islam as it is before you to contemplate and draw your own intellectual conclusions. The most effective way of presenting this part of the discussion is to have it under the heading, the understanding of Islam's message as per the Quran and Prophet's life and teachings as presented by Maulana Wahiddudin Khan Sahib. Maulana Sahib was a modern Muslim thinker. He spent his entire life for the above cause. He presented the true face of Islam after a thorough research. He dedicated his life to understanding the message of the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet. He did what he had to do in terms of the revival of the message as preached by the Prophet. The true Islam had to be revived and not revised or changed, which many people think as the requirement of the modern world. No, how can we say this before we thoroughly understand its message and find out whether it's a universal message or not, whether it is reason-based or not, whether its teachings are applicable in the present times or not? Maulana was awarded the Padma Vibhushan 2021 posthumously. He has been referred to as a world-renowned Islamic scholar and Gandhian peace activist. His field of expertise has been described as an expert in both classical Islamic learning and modern science. In the following session, Maulana's presentation of some of the points will highlight the relevance of the Islamic teachings in the modern world, proving him to be a modern Muslim thinker in the true sense of the title. Before we begin with this, let's have a quick run through the points we discussed until now. We understood a few basics of Islam, then important to differentiate between the message of Islam and the behavior of Muslims. Then we agreed upon the fact that all of us are on the same page as far as our understanding or definition of the modern world is concerned. And then the term relevance to the modern world. Then difference between revival and revision. So with this, let's proceed now. Now here, we need to divide the Islamic teachings into two categories. One is moral teachings, which refers to like virtues of honesty, good social behavior, generosity, politeness, patience, tolerance, right down to the most simple virtue of greeting another person with a smile. All of us know these things, and every religious or secular person has this in common. No one differs in these concepts. So the second category is what needs to be discussed. These are the concepts which, due to the misrepresentation by some of the Muslims, has sent a wrong message to the world that those aspects of the modern life which are crucial in the present times have not been addressed by Islam. And therefore, Islam, according to them, is not suitable for the present times. See, I use the word misrepresentation. Unlike others who say Islam is misunderstood. This is not true. The followers of Islam are responsible for this. People conclude by looking at their behavior from the literature, from what they convey. Therefore, at the very outset, it was a request that to know Islam, one should turn to its scriptures, Quran, and the teachings and life of the Prophet. Maulana has studied and researched thoroughly and has presented these in the modern jargon for the modern man. Therefore, he was indeed a modern Muslim thinker. What are these concepts to which the modern man looks for reason-based answers and practical solutions to ensure a harmonious life in a multicultural society? First, I'll give you a list of these concepts and then discuss a few points in each of it as presented by Maulana. Modern civilization, scientific developments and discoveries, spirit of inquiry. The first topic. Then two, freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, intellectual freedom, freedom of inquiry. Third, criticism and the right to dissent. Fourth, community, nationhood and nationalism. 5. Democracy and secularism. 6. Peace and dialogue. 7. Status of women. And 8. Judgment with reasoning, which is known as ijtihad. So these are the concepts wherein it's very important to understand that we have guidance, complete full guidance about these issues in the Islamic teachings. Modern civilization, let's take that. The Muslims have given the feeling to the world that followers of Islam think that the modern civilization is anti-Islam. Let's analyze this in the light of Islamic teachings. There are several verses in the Quran which make predictions of future events. The following verse is a prediction where chapter 41 verse 53 it says, "We shall show them our signs in the universe and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that this is the truth." This verse refers to the rise of Western civilization, a pro-human civilization in the later period of human history. This verse clearly foretells the developments which took place in Western nations 1,000 years after the revelation of the Quran. This civilization of the West was in reality based on science. There are two aspects to this, the theoretical and the applied aspect. The applied aspect of Western civilization may also be called the technological aspect. One of the teachings of the Prophet mentions that God will certainly support his religion through a secular person. This is in fact a prediction of the emergence of Western civilization, which in essence was pro-human. That is, it would benefit all of mankind as well as the divine religion. Western or modern civilization is not the phenomena of a certain race or community. It owes itself entirely to the discovery of hidden natural laws and the development of a technology which benefited and continuing to benefit the whole of humanity. For example, the discovery of the laws of nature introduced a new age of communication from which everyone benefited, including the proponents of the religion of Islam. The other side pertains to the benefits introduced by science and technology, such as the modern means of communication and transport. This has given people a thorough knowledge of geography and facilitated travel from one place to another. The printing press, too, has greatly facilitated the dissemination of ideas across the whole world. Electronic technology has indeed turned the whole world into a global village. Now it has become possible to speak from one part of the globe and be heard and watched across the world. The Quran repeatedly declares, God is subjected to you, whatever is in the heavens and whatsoever is on the earth. This means that all things in the heavens and on earth have been made to serve man. But in order to benefit from these things, their latent powers had to be discovered and then harnessed to fulfill human needs. Although nature's bounty was stressed in the Quran, the discoverers of this reality were the people of the West. It was they who realized its potential. As the Quran puts it, and he gave you of all that you asked him. Chapter 14, verse 34. The blessings of God mentioned in this verse are of two kinds. The first kind comprises those blessings which already existed on the earth from the day man set foot there. For instance, water, air, light, plants, animals, etc. Other kinds of blessings are those which were not yet in existence at the time of the revelation of the Quran. For instance, industrial machinery, modes of transport, means of communication, electricity, etc. The second kind of things were later inventions, but today they are in general use everywhere. The Quran tells us that God's signs, that is, scientific proof of God's religion, are hidden in the heavens and in human souls. In modern times, these signs have fully emerged and have established the veracity of God's religion. Maulana refers to the Western civilization as the benefactors and calls upon the Muslims to acknowledge their role and be grateful. One of the sayings of the Prophet of Islam is worth quoting here. He says, "One who is not grateful to man cannot be grateful to God." The second aspect is that Islam encourages spirit of inquiry. According to a teaching, the Prophet of Islam once said, "The remedy for ignorance is asking questions. If the ignorant man does not inquire, his ignorance will stay with him." There is a saying in Arabic to the same effect. To know that you do not know is half knowledge itself. So this is called in present day parlance the spirit of inquiry and is given great importance. It is this spirit of inquiry which has placed the greatest role in bringing about the age of science. It is the zeal to discover which has led man to knowledge. An inquisitive mind is indispensable for the acquisition of knowledge, and Islam encourages the spirit of inquiry in a complete way. And it is this spirit which is the foundation of all scientific progress. So Islam does not contradict science. Instead, Islam corroborates scientific facts. And we can conclude by saying that science has enlarged the canvas of God realization. Then we come to the freedom part where there is a lot of misrepresentation. First, let's talk about why has God given man freedom. A few points were already shared by Sister Shabina on this issue also. Unlike any other creature in the universe, man is free in this world. God has not placed any curbs on him, but this freedom is for the purpose of putting man to the test and is not meant to encourage him to lead a life of permissiveness and then pass away one day. Rather, its purpose is that man should lead a morally upright life of his own free will, thus demonstrating that he is of the highest moral character. The next concept is pertaining to religious freedom in the modern world. Chapter 2, verse 256 says, "There shall be no compulsion in religion." The concept of religious freedom was introduced by the Islamic Revolution as early as the 7th century. It had the effect of changing the whole course of history. However, the promulgation of this idea and its acceptance had to be a very gradual process, being brought to its culmination only in the 19th century. Now, at last, we are living in an age when the concept of religious freedom has become an established fact. This change in history is a great blessing for Islam. Then after World War II, when all the nations of the world came together to form the United Nations, their organization issued a declaration subscribed to by all in June 1948. It was called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This charter accepted with greater force that every man or woman enjoys the right to opt for any religion according to his or her will and may propagate it peacefully. This declaration was signed by all the nations of the world. Freedom is a summum bonum in the world of today. Everyone has freedom of thought and expression in the absolute sense. It can be cancelled only when one inflicts physical injury in the exercise of this freedom. Islam allows complete freedom of expression, the only restriction being that freedom should not be used to cause physical harm to anyone in society. If someone claims that his sentiments were hurt, then that is not the concern of democracy. If someone feels hurt, he should manage his sentiments on his own, rather than demanding others to not hurt him. Modern man takes enormous pride in the freedom he has won for himself, but it is self-discipline rather than freedom that is needed for peace to prevail on earth. Intellectual freedom in Islam. Man has been granted total intellectual freedom in Islam. In all periods of human history, system of absolutism prevailed in the world. That's why man was denied of intellectual freedom. Intellectual freedom is no simple matter. The truth is that the secret of all human progress lies hidden in this intellectual freedom. Islam in its teachings professes intellectual freedom. Freedom of speech. As God has granted freedom to man as per his creation plan, it's quite natural that there should be freedom of speech in Islam. Placing any curb on freedom of speech will go against the creation plan of the self. Anyone who misuses his freedom should be countered with logic and argument, not with violence. In other words, the pen will be countered with the pen and not with the sword. The Quran tells us that the Prophet's contemporaries, misusing their freedom, spoke abusive words against him. The Quran has referred to these incidents, but it does not give the command to kill those who abuse the Prophet. On the contrary, the Quran tells us that the Prophet and his companions either ignored their abuses or they countered them with argument and nothing more. The environment of freedom of expression is extremely important for Islam. Open, frank discussion takes place in such an environment. One needs to meet intellectual challenges and reflect deeply. Only then will the minds of people open up. The environment of freedom of expression prevents intellectual stagnation and produces creative thinking. So the importance of freedom of expression is so great that no curb should be placed on it. Freedom of inquiry. Islam, for the first time in history, separated religious knowledge from secular knowledge. The source of religious knowledge which came into general acceptance was divine revelation, which is the Quran, while full freedom was given to inquiry into material phenomena so that individuals could arrive at their own conclusions independently. One of the incidents in Prophet's life brings about the above principle. Once the Prophet passed by some people who had climbed up to the top of some date palms. The Prophet inquired as to what they were doing. He was told that they were pollinating the trees in order to fertilize them. The Prophet said, I don't think this will benefit them. When people learned of the Prophet's comment to stop the practice of pollination, and the yield that year was very low. When the Prophet came to know of this, he said, if they benefit from pollination, they should continue with this practice. I had only made a guess. It was an opinion. There is no need to follow my opinion in such matters. If, on the other hand, I say anything about God, it must be adhered to because I never say anything from opinion or guess when I'm speaking of God. The Prophet told the date growers to stick to their own methods because you know your world better, he said. So according to this hadith, Islam separates religious matters from scientific research. In religious affairs, there has to be strict adherence to divine guidance. But in scientific research, the work must proceed according to human experience. This indeed marks the advent of the greatest revolution in the history of science. How about criticism and the right to dissent? Dissent means difference of opinion. In matters of criticism or expression of differences, the right approach is for people to end unnecessary sensitivity to it instead of attempting to put an end to criticism and differences. This is the demand of Islam, a religion of nature. According to the Hadith, it's a virtue on the part of believers to accept the truth without any reservation when it is presented to them. That is to say, a believer is one who has the ability in the perfect sense of the word to accept the truth whenever truth is brought before him. Whenever his faults are pointed out to him, no complex comes in the way of his accepting of the truth. The Quran has commanded us to settle all matters at issue through counseling. Unlike arbitration, counseling implies the freedom to dissent. If diversity of opinions were not allowed to emerge, no fruitful counseling could ever be done. That is why Islam grants total freedom of expression. In the first phase of Islam, there is not a single instance of anyone being held blameworthy on account of a difference of opinion or the frank voicing of criticism. Then the concepts of community, nationhood, and nationalism. A universally acknowledged principle of the modern world is that the homeland is the basis of nationhood. The homeland of a person therefore determines their nationality. According to the modern concept, religion is a matter of private and personal belief, while nationhood is a secular matter, and all issues pertaining to nationhood are decided according to secular principles. From the Quran, we learn that the prophets address the people as O my people. From this, we learn that the believers and non-believers can share the same nationality, to use a modern term. In other words, nationality is determined by one's homeland, not by one's religion. The term to denote the unity formed by adherence to a common religion is millat, while the term to denote sharing a common homeland is qawmiyat. In today's world, one's homeland is considered to be the basis of one's nationality, and Islam agrees with this principle. The Quran says in another verse, mankind, we have created you from a male and female and made you into peoples and tribes so that you might come to know each other. This term, peoples, in this verse indicates groups that are derived from sharing a common homeland, while the term tribes indicates groups based on racial commonality. So according to the Quran, both of these types of grouping of people are simply for the sake of knowing each other, not for indicating relationships of belief or religion. Now, what is Islam's perspective on democracy and secularism? Democracy is a form of government in which people's representatives manage the socio-political affairs of the society. This system is a natural system. Islam is a religion of nature, and so Islam also accepts this form of rule. There are two different domains of human life, individual and social. In personal affairs, everyone is free to adopt any way of life, provided it is not harmful to the society. Islam allows personal freedom to every individual. There is no restriction at all in this regard, except that a person's activities should create no problems for the society. In social matters, the society has the right to decide how to manage social affairs. So, chapter 42, verse 38 says, those who conduct their affairs by mutual consultation. This is the formula of democracy according to Islam. It means that at an individual level, everyone is free to act according to their choice. But as far as social affairs are concerned, they'll be managed by way of social consultation. This is the true meaning of democracy, and Islam advocates this form of governance. Now, the Encyclopedia of Religion and Ethics has defined secularism as a policy of non-interference in religious matters. According to this definition, secularism differentiates between religious affairs and political affairs. It confines itself to political matters that pertain to common good of a society. But as far as the religion is concerned, it gives freedom to every individual and every religious group. So Islam adopts a realistic approach rather than the dogmatic approach in social and political affairs. Islam accepts secularism not as a creed, but as a practical policy. Peace and dialogue. A study of history tells us that practically there are only two formulas available for peace, and that whenever peace has been achieved, it was achieved by following one of the two formulas. The first formula for peace is that of give and take. That is gaining something by giving something to the other party. The second formula for securing peace is to accept the status quo. Refusal to accept the status quo results in war, and acceptance of the status quo results in peace. Now, it is circumstances that will determine which one of the two formula is applicable to any given situation. This is the gist of what Maulana Sahab says he has found after a long study of Islam as well as human history. In short, peace is the outcome of coexistence, and peaceful coexistence is the only way of existence on this planet. This is the lesson we learn from history. Either we coexist or we cease to exist. There is simply no other option. Scholars have defined peace as the absence of war. This definition is absolutely correct. Peace in fact means the absence of a situation of war or violence. However, some people hold this definition of peace to be inadequate, and they say that justice should accompany peace, that peace devoid of justice is no peace. People the world over are therefore acting intolerantly and indulging in acts of violence in the name of justice, saying, "Give us justice and peace will ensue." According to Maulana Sahab, setting such a condition for the attainment of peace is impractical. This is because peace on its own does not bring justice. That is, justice is not necessarily an element of peace. When people indulge in acts of violence in the name of justice, peace can never prevail. This is because nothing productive can take place in an environment of violence. Peace is always desirable for its own sake, and everything else comes after, not along with peace. If peace is maintained in the society, then people can avail of the opportunities and eventually they can obtain justice and bring to fruition many other constructive initiatives. The case of Japan is a concrete example of the success of this formula. Japan's industrial cities Hiroshima and Nagasaki were destroyed by the atom bombs in 1945. After the Holocaust, Japan abandoned violence and adopted a peaceful course for its development, which it termed as the reverse course. And as a result, within a short span of 40 years, Japan rose to become a great economic power of the world. Therefore, the success which was not forthcoming, even after a long and violent struggle, was achieved by peaceful methods in a short period of time. So the only practicable formula for obtaining peace is ignoring the problems and availing the opportunities. This is the ideology of peace given in Islam as practiced by Prophet Muhammad, that is exemplified by the Hudaybiyah Treaty. One wants more details, one could read the book Muhammad, A Prophet for All Humanity by Maulana Sahab. Now, dialogue. What is the formula of interfaith bridge building? Here Maulana Sahab quotes a well-known Sufi formula which consists of two words, Sulekul. It means peace with all. This formula is based on a Quranic verse that is As-sulhu khair. Reconciliation is the best. Chapter 4, verse 128. It means that in a situation where there is conflict or controversy between the two parties, peaceful conciliation is the best policy. In every situation, we have to adopt peaceful methods rather than violent methods. Many events in the Prophet's life show that the Prophet of Islam was able to discover a commonality between himself and the members of other communities. It means that just as he was a human being, so was the other person. Both had been created by one and the same God. People may have the differences in belief, religion, culture, etc., but a common bond has to be discovered between them, which shows them all to be human beings. Now, status of women. One significant point that we have to understand about Islam with regard to women is that it does nowhere raise the questions of superiority or inferiority of any gender while talking about men and women. Islam considers each gender unique in its own sphere of activity and allots roles to each gender, which are best suited to them and according to their nature and needs. Islamic formula is equal in respect, different in role. Islam makes the family the key social unit. All the members of this unit play specific roles for its welfare and upkeep. The position of women derives from the very premise that the family is the cornerstone of the Muslim society. Under the Islamic system, discrimination on grounds of gender, power, or wealth is not allowed. Indeed, the Quran states very simply the origin of mankind by rejecting any distinction or discrimination on account of birth. The Quran explicitly states, O mankind, fear your Lord who created you from a single soul. He created its mate from it, and from the two of them spread countless men and women throughout the earth. Chapter 4, verse 1. Personal development, intellectual pursuits, and the acquisition of knowledge are human rights that should be conceded to males and females alike without discrimination. Islam allows for equal opportunities to both the genders in the pursuit of knowledge. There is no derision, no underestimation anywhere. Each gender is encouraged to build up its individuality in every way. The Prophet said, it is essential for every Muslim man and woman to acquire knowledge. I'm reading out a little long verse from the Quran, chapter 33, verse 35. Spiritual attainment is not exclusively for men. Women have as much right over spiritual purification as men. So for this is the verse from the Quran, and where it says, surely for men and women who have surrendered to God, believing men and believing women, truthful men and truthful women, patient men and patient women, humble men and humble women, charitable men and charitable women, fasting men and fasting women, men and women who guard their chastity, men and women who are ever mindful of God. God is ready with forgiveness and an immense reward. Now we come to the last part of the discussion, which is the exercise of judgment with reasoning, which is known as ijtihad. See, there are different parts of religious teachings sent down by God. One part encompasses all that is common to all the prophets sent to any part of the world. These teachings do not change with the changing times. These are the basic essence of religion. If we have to follow this real part of religion, the question of relevance or irrelevance does not arise. Whatever the age, for its tenets are based on eternal values. If we look at the teachings of Islam from this angle, we shall find that there is no conflict between these teachings and the demands of modern times, and that Islam is practicable in the modern age in the full sense of the word. The real and basic demand of Islam is that man should believe in one God, he should worship him alone, he should embody truth, honesty, and other moral values. In short, within his own private sphere, he should fully obey God. Obviously, these teachings of Islam do not clash with the demands of modern times, which are equally practicable today. Another part of God's religion covers law and method, known as Sharia and Minhaj. In this second part of the teachings, some concessions had to be made according to the age and situation in which the teachings were revealed. That is why the prophets were given different laws at different times. Third part of Islam pertains to social laws. For instance, deterrent punishments. These kinds of laws similarly do not clash with the demands of modern times. For commandments such as these do not mean that Muslims should start implementing these commands in whatever circumstances they find themselves. On the contrary, the prerequisite for the enforcement of these commands is that, first of all, they should be acceptable in the society. As long as they remain unacceptable, they will remain in abeyance. Then there is the fourth part, which is the method. In this field also, there is no clash between Islam and modern times. For in social matters, Islam will adopt whatever method is worthy of being implemented according to the spirit of the age. For instance, no attempt will be made to impose the system of caliphate by force in a country which has a democratic system. There are many incidents from the life of the Prophet which reveal that if a principle is generally accepted at the international level, then the relevant Islamic principle will also be the same as that of other nations. One important teaching of Islam is that, with the exception of matters of worship and beliefs, no command is absolute so far as social matters are concerned. Commands can change with changes in place and time. The Sharia law can be changed as per the rule framed by our jurists. Commands change with the change of time and place. This teaching establishes at the outset that in no circumstances should we clash with the times. Rather, in keeping with the demand of the times, we are free to carve out our path. In such a situation, there is no possibility of Islam ever appearing to be irrelevant with the change of time. Obviously, when we are not supposed to go against circumstances, how could Islam ever become irrelevant due to the changed situation? From a study of the Prophet's life, we may deduce the important congregational principle that Islam does not encourage us to clash with the prevailing political situation, but urges us instead to pursue a goal by accepting the status quo. This teaching solves the problem of Islam ever becoming irrelevant with the changing times. A system becomes irrelevant only when it is at variance with the changing times. When there is no such clash, the question of irrelevance does not arise at all. See, the actual target of Islam is the intellectual, spiritual, and moral rectification of the individual. This task is wholly related to the sphere of individual freedom. Today, the principle has been accepted all over the world that every individual has been granted full freedom in his own personal sphere. He's free to think and act as he likes. This is the actual sphere of Islamic action. And when in this sphere, where every individual is granted total freedom, no objection can be raised that Islam has lost its relevance in modern times. Another sphere of human action is that which concerns social matters. This is the sphere in which confrontation takes place, raising the question of relevance and irrelevance. Islamic teaching for this sphere is action in accordance with circumstances. If circumstances are not conducive for action, we have to follow the path of persuasion and counseling, strictly adhering to peaceful means. Now, there are also certain matters where the teachings of Islam apparently go against the prevalent custom. For instance, the justification of wine. The teachings of Islam in such matters are clearly different from the prevalent custom of modern times. And as we know, the majority today is not at the moment willing to accept the teaching of Islam in these matters. This would appear to show that Islam has become irrelevant in modern times. But it's not right to draw this conclusion in haste. It is true that the teachings of Islam in social matters are different from the custom of the age, but this is a matter pertaining to ideological differences. In modern times, there are two aspects to a religion becoming irrelevant. One is ideological, another practical. Becoming irrelevant from the practical point of view means that a religion gives such commands to its followers as are impracticable from the point of view of the age factor. As mentioned above, no such command exists in Islam. In its practical aspects, Islam is a religion of adjustment, giving ample concession to circumstances. There is enough flexibility in Islam in this regard. That is why Islam could never become irrelevant, whatever the age, so far as practical matters are concerned. So the teaching of Islam in this matter is to opt for the way of patience, that is, refraining completely from launching oneself on a collision course and instead communicating one's point of view to others in the language of persuasion. In this way, an atmosphere can be created in which the Islamic teachings can be presented purely on a rational basis with the hope that it may find acceptance in due course. So one thing now worth remembering in this connection relates to ijtihad, which means exercise of judgment with reasoning. One role of ijtihad is that whenever any teaching of Islam appears to be going against the demands of the time, the religious scholars are duty bound to strive by exercising ijtihad to seek a reapplication of the teachings of Islam to the changed situation. Ijtihad is in fact another name for seeking reapplication of Islamic teachings to the changing needs of the time. Muslim scholars of modern times, feeling the need to exercise ijtihad, have made an effort to reapply the principle of Islam in this matter. For instance, in the Indian subcontinent, Maulana Hussain Ahmad Madani and Maulana Abul Kalam Azad said that since in modern times nationality was linked with the homeland, Islam would also follow the same principle. That is to say, in whichever country Muslims lived, they would be regarded as co-patriots like other citizens, and they would not insist on a separate nationality for themselves. Great importance has been attached to the process of ijtihad in Islam. According to one teaching of the Prophet, if a Muslim exercises ijtihad and he reaches the right decision, he will be doubly rewarded. And if even after a sincere effort, he fails to reach the right judgment, he'll still be rewarded. This shows the act of ijtihad must continue in all circumstances, even when there is a possibility of arriving at the wrong judgment. So the aim of ijtihad is that in all ages, the gap between Islam and the age may continue to be filled. In no circumstances should the impression be formed that Islam has become irrelevant. It was due to the importance of this matter that the Prophet of Islam encouraged Muslims to continue the process of ijtihad, even at the risk of making mistakes. In no circumstance was the door of ijtihad to be closed. The truth is that the actual goal of Islam is to bring about an intellectual revolution among people in order to produce high thinking. Such a task is eternal in its nature. Along with eternal laws goes the principle of flexibility in Islam. Along with absolute commands, Islam gives ample space for concessions and exemptions. And along with the observance of form, Islam gives equal importance to the spirit. So these were the thoughts of Maulana Sahab as a modern Muslim thinker, which I shared with my discerning audience on this important topic today. Thank you so much for your patient hearing.
Thank you, Sister Fatima Sera, for your presentation on Islam in modern world and connecting it with, drawing from the teachings of Maulana Wahiddudin Khan Sahab on a number of important issues that touch the life of people in the modern world. We have 6 minutes left. So any question, any clarification? Please, the floor is open for your reflections and questions.
Father, may I take 2 minutes to clarify 2 questions from the morning session?
Yeah, yes, sure. Go ahead.
This is about that martyr aspect, where a brother was trying to ask about why a status of martyr is given to someone who kills, and it's said that a martyr gets paradise. So for that, see, I remembered these verses from the Quran. In chapter 10, verse 25 says, God calls man to the home of peace, which is about paradise. Home of peace is paradise. And in another verse, chapter, it says, "O soul at peace, return to your Lord well pleased, well pleasing, join my servants, enter my paradise." See, we get a title only at the end of a life, or after living that life for so many years. So if God is to call someone as soul at peace and making them enter paradise, very obvious that they should have lived a life, peaceful life on this earth, and should have contributed towards the peace in the world. So this is just a matter of, you know what, the important thing is, okay, a martyr will get paradise, but who is a martyr is what they are wrong about. They are attaching it, giving their own definitions to it. See, in the age of religious persecution, people were killed for their belief. And for a defensive war, which was inevitable, a little motivation had to be there for people who were killed, for their families, because they were killed in defensive wars. They had been trying to defend themselves, and other people killed them because they for their belief. So now age of persecution is over. In fact, the innocents, I feel personally, the innocents who are being killed are actually martyrs and not those killers. So killing and this being a soul at peace and paradise and all doesn't go together. The Quran is very clear. See, these are very simple verses. We don't even need one great interpretation to understand, where God is saying God calls man to the home of peace, and he's calling someone who's soul at peace.
Thank you.
Okay. Then about the Kaaba, I felt, this was a thought which I got afterwards. It's more of a security issue, because the Muslims are killing others also. So many things are happening. It was more of a security issue. And I think such security issues are being followed by every religion, nation, state, even individuals, depending on what's happening in the world. Like they might not, this particular place, they might not allow a particular group of people, or the rules might be more strict and things like that. This was one more point which I got as of now for this, which is like my personal understanding, which I'm just sharing with all of you, rather than, putting down someone or thinking on those lines. So I got this word security issue in the mind as such, on why some people, I mean, they might be preventing and getting strict about these kind of things. So I'd leave you at that. Now, please.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Welcome.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation. I have a question. As you are speaking about modern world, which we have seen, it encompasses a variety of aspects. One such aspect is which I feel that you must have left out is very much important, is suffering. That is, we see the depression, people are with depression and lots of suffering around in the world, in this modern world. So my question is, Islam, as you are speaking, Islam is relevant. So therefore, in this aspect, in this context, how does Islam understand suffering, and what are the teachings with regard to Islam, with regard to suffering, to make it relevant today?
Thank you, brother. That's a very important question. And this important question needs to be addressed at length. See, this comes under the creation plan of God, which Sister Shabina just touched upon. And because of the time and the type of topic which is given to me, in fact, even if one didn't ask, in the end, I wanted to suggest something, that in order to understand this creation plan, I wanted to suggest, give a humble suggestion about reading a few articles, not very lengthy articles, so that we get this right perspective of the whole plan which God has told us. See, our lifespan, it's divided into two periods: pre-death, which is on this earth, and post-death. This pre-death is a short span of life, maximum 100 years, or death is like no time thing is there on that. People die young, and that's all God's will. So God has put us on this earth as a test to see who is eligible for his eternal paradise. So here we are being put to test, and for this, freedom has to be given. And when freedom is there, there is always a chance of misuse of freedom. So whenever there is misuse of freedom, it results in evil. Misuse of freedom by human beings results in evil, which will be suffering for others. Others suffer because of this evil. But in the entire creation plan in the Quran, several verses are there which when we understand all of them together, the whole life on this earth, how we have to face it, how we have to give the right responses in spite of whatever we go through, how we have to, in Maulana's words, grow through what we go through, how we mold our personalities to be paradisical personalities. When we understand all that, we will get the right perspective of what the suffering is about. And also there are commandments where each one of us have to uh, live our life in such a way that we try to ease the suffering of our fellow people. So helping others, doing things to remove the suffering, to help people during their suffering, all this is a part of the world which we are, which we all can observe. And these are the responses. And from this, we are either proving that we deserve God's rewards or otherwise. So this creation plan articles are highly important. If we really need to understand this in a correct way, it will give us the entire meaning of what is happening on this earth, and what and how we should live our life on this earth.
Thank you, ma'am. It's 4:02. If brothers, you have any, if you don't have any, if you have any questions, you kindly ask, or we could close.
And Father, people could ask questions on the email also to me, which I
Okay.
will respond to them. And
Yes.
my suggestion was to go to the website of Spirit of Islam magazine, and there is a search option. And if you just type the word, like somebody was mentioning triple talaq, if you just type that word, 2-3 articles which in detail everything is covered, Maulana's, they are all Maulana's writings. We just put them together in the magazine. So you will get the correct perspective in 1 or 2 articles. So like this, every topic can be researched on this option. So even if the creation plan, the suffering, even if you put just the problem of suffering or the aspect of suffering, all this explanation will be there in Maulana's words.
Thank you, ma'am. I will share your email with brothers.
Thank you.
So they could, if they want, they could ask. Yes, certainly. And then you also share that Spirit of Islam's
Yes.
webpage. I have, but I can share also with them. Yeah. So, dear sisters and dear brothers, we had a very fruitful 3 sessions. We have now we put the whole day at the disposal to engage with our sisters. I'm very grateful to Center for Peace and Spirituality, Maulana Wahiddudin Khan Sahib's, the scholars who learned from him and continue to take the message through many different modern means of communication. They're doing a beautiful work and very helpful, in engaging with conversation with the Christians in Delhi. So I'm really grateful to Farida ma'am, Professor Farida ma'am, and Fatima Sera and Sabina Ali. Thank you so much for spending the whole day with us, sharing with us and responding to our questions in a beautiful way, in a generous way. So I thank all 3 of you. And also I especially thank Brother Rajat. He is the one who organizes for CPS and very generous, and anytime I call him, he is always ready to help us out. So I express our gratitude to our brother Rajat. And also I thank our brothers who listen to the presentations very carefully and also asked many good questions, clarification. Also, I really want to appreciate brothers for asking difficult questions, but in a beautiful way that facilitate responses. So that's something beautiful. We are growing in dialoguing with one another. Recently, I read one sentence struck me. Muslims and Christians were cobras to each other in the past. So from there, we have grown to a larger extent. Christians, Catholics, especially after the Vatican Council II, the teaching of Vatican Council Nostra Aetate, and through the popes, Pope Paul VI, Pope John Paul II, and present Pope Francis, in a beautiful way, they reach out. They show us how to take forward engagement with Muslims in their teaching, written words, and also in their actions. So I feel really we are, as Christians, Catholics, we are privileged to have the teachings of the church and privileged to have wonderful popes who show us the way. And also we are very glad that we have wonderful partners like Center for Peace and Spirituality, and across the world, many other groups who engage with Catholics in different forms of dialogue, theological and spiritual and common, working together for common cause, and also a day-to-day dialogue. So I'm very grateful. So we thank God for such an opportunity to engage with you. So thank you, sisters, and thank you, brothers. So assalamu alaikum.
Father Victor, I'll take a minute
Thank you, Father.
to thank all of you on behalf of CPS for giving us all this great opportunity, and you were very generous in speaking about all of us in the introduction you gave, and in all the thank you said to us. This was your great generosity you shown, Father Victor. We are highly grateful to you and pray for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.